Is sin a big deal?
So when all say, the church are the worst people, that might be true to some degree.
And it's something that I always say. The same grace that you'd want for yourself, give it to others.
All sin has consequences. You may forgive, you may show grace, but maybe if you broke that trust, that relationship also, there are real consequences to things. Like I know, like part of your story. Finding community and building community is a struggle.
The people or things that may have hurt me in my past, I can't put that on the people that are in my present.
We all come in as sinners, and we know we are only saved by God's grace. But as we go on and move in that grace, we should start to see
some
changes.
Church jail is basically when you have to sit down a little bit now. Like, not serve.
Right.
Yeah, take a little break from stuff.
From ministry.
You need to think about the wrong that you did.
So like a naughty corner?
Naughty corner, correct.
I can't really remember being in church jail. I remember visiting others in church jail. You go check them everyone so we can stop.
Welcome to another episode of Unfiltered. I am Ren and joining me is Pastor J.
Hey, what's up? I'm good. Looking forward to today as always.
Yep, what are we going to be talking about?
Of course, you really want to introduce that right now?
Yeah, we could just like tease it.
Alright.
Just in a nice way.
Is doing wrong really a bad thing?
That wasn't bad though.
But it's the same thing, right?
Yeah.
I just try to soften it a little bit.
Yeah.
You put me on the spot one time, so.
But we're not alone. We have the MP, Medium Pepper.
Medium Pepper.
I have some requests that I should probably go back to mystery producer. Like the full name now, because if we have new viewers and they just say MP, they might not understand.
You make us learn calling you MP.
Well, it worked for like 6 episodes and I think it's...
Okay, well...
I was thinking for the viewer's sake now.
So here we'll just kind of reference it. MP.
Right.
Just fill in that is the mystery producer.
No, I think they could put up a little graphic, with the
explanation. You give in real work to the editing team.
I think that should be a good responsibility. Yeah. I second that.
Correct.
Yeah. So here's what we will stick with MP.
Correct.
And we'll have the editor. Just
and
kind of
eyes have it.
So as per usual, let's start off with something light. The game is called Storytime. It's basically, we're just going to tell a story, but each person could only say one word. Okay. So this is actually the first game I'm actually involved in since we start. Normally it's just the two of you all.
Glad you're coming into the fold,
Yeah. So basically,
we can't be doing this thing alone.
So basically,
face something just now.
We'll have a timer, probably like a minute. But the way you get, I wouldn't say the way the game stops is if you just can't continue. Like if you're stumped for the word.
Okay.
And like I said, it's one word we go in with.
You gotta be good at English for this. You gotta be good at English for this. All right, let's go.
What's the name of this game again?
Storytime.
This song real made up, but
a lot of research went into this game.
Really? Yes. Let me check your sources after.
So, ladies first, we'll start.
No, come on, man. How you'll do me that?
You have actually, the person that starts has the easiest.
Okay, once.
Way.
Upon
a time.
Nah.
Okay.
Nah.
So I out then. So alright, just twirl it then.
No, we starting over. You are not getting away like that.
Why you look how you start?
Today
was
a
great
day
because
I
went to
church
When
the
pastor
made
a
statement
that
really
I was
annoyed
all
the
well, I feel this. Yeah, all too personal. I feel a little bit attacked here. But
then
I
so
a
parrot
fly
inside
the
just
and
then
he
landed
on
the
pastor's
head
but
all
the
people
decided
to
cry
because
I read
he how long can we have?
I don't know. I just find story going real good.
I think we reach our minute, Chad. But you know what? Every time I try to turn it to some positive,
Joshua, not me. I
First V
say
is one word I give
mostly
in.
two and D and them and
every time I try to redeem this story.
All right, let me end the story then.
okay.
Well, what you had
I
said?
said he.
You said
I
what?
can't even remember where we got to. Where were you?
I can't even remember.
Yeah.
All
Something about the
it
congregation.
ended.
All right.
We not sure how this story turned out.
All right, one more story then.
Okay.
All right.
You start. I'm not starting.
Well, there's a as a Man U.
Is
Rel.
Good.
because
I
Like
Manu
how
come
all
games
always
ends
badly.
only
when
Players
stop
playing
well. This is a very boring man,
you wanna know
you
why?
start bad.
I know, cause you so against that.
You start bad.
You know, I do one for the MP. You know, as much as he was participating.
But don't you like that team?
Of course.
You what? Of course. He
I
was
have
gonna
a love-hate relationship with them.
I
but
feel like
that's
most
my
people-
side. That's my side. I ain't afraid to say that.
Okay.
Man,
Condolences.
you for real. More
Right.
tears than joy.
all right, last one. I'll start.
Oh gosh.
Renata
Oh come on.
already starts.
Is
Very
choose your words wisely.
With
Most
of,
the
time.
but
she keep it quick
Can't
stop
crushing
on
the.
not.
Come on! Yeah, set it up. I set it up for you.
No.
On the.
Don't be so obvious.
Look. We
handsome Am I taking long?
It take too long.
Guy.
That should have said drama.
No,
I was
just
thinking
wanna-
drama
I
would
couldn't-
be a
yeah,
I
nice
was trying to
story.
figure out
Yeah.
like somebody that I like, but just one blank.
Okay.
You know, I
Drama.
line me up there. You know.
Yeah.
Now you just play it safe.
I know.
That's smart.
I know. 'Cause,
Wisdom.
he was more concerned about after the episode. What happened.
Why you would be concerned about that?
I don't know. You know, just conversations after parrots flying
Okay.
in.
I'd already talked to him that much after anyways.
Okay.
Listen, nothing can top that first one. I'm very sorry. I actually really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
By the way, for made up game, you did well, Josh. I mean, MP.
Edit one time.
Thank you.
Okay, this is probably like the fourth time I did that. I'm sorry.
And each
Okay.
time I'd never cut it out, actually.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But actually,
The first time we
at
did
least this
drawing.
time you caught it.
Yeah, at least this
This
time she
I caught it,
realized.
but the first time I was saying it and I was drawing.
We
Yeah.
know. We were
So
like,
y'all talking and I am responding to you, but I'm not actually hearing what y'all saying.
We understand.
Yeah.
I feel sorry for you, MP.
Sorry. Very engrossed in the icebreaker. Anyways.
This was good for a made up icebreaker
Yeah.
with much research. So.
That's
Yeah.
much research.
Much research.
Yeah.
I just hope a paradox of blindside understood. Okay, so it's time to jump into
You wanna introduce the topic?
There's a big topic.
Yeah.
It's kind of a hard one, I would say. I think we kind of tried to see how we could soften it as much as possible, but I don't think there's a way or work around
Well,
a topic like this.
you know what? I am okay with it, given the fact that we okay dealing with like some of the harder topics.
Yeah.
And hopefully people find it a safe space to talk about it, to push back, agree, disagree. But hopefully we add some value around this because it's a big one. For real.
Yeah, 100%. And it kind of leads into kind of like the discussions that we've been having here on the podcast for the past couple times, the past couple episodes, like with homosexuality and stuff like that. So we're gonna unpack this, and you use the word wrongdoing, but what we're actually gonna be talking about is sin a big deal? Is it?
Well, it depends on who you ask.
Okay.
I mean, seriously, because I mean, when you look at this topic, we coming from like, you know, our Christian backgrounds, obviously we would agree that it is. But a lot of what we see out here, just in the world and even within the church sometimes, there's no clear answer with it sometimes. I'm saying there's a clear answer, but
Yeah.
a lot about how this conversation goes, it can go many different ways.
Yeah.
And I think that's what we're
100%.
going to do today.
Yeah, kind of,
Just
you know,
touch on
kinda
some of the
unpack it
angles.
and- yeah, 100%. We had to start real basic, you know.
Right?
What is sin? What is sin? Where did it come from? We maybe don't need to go into where it came from, but what is it?
So like just a basic how we define
Yeah.
it. So I would say like when I try to soften it, just like wrongdoing. I think
Okay.
let's just do a real basic. I mean, we have some other definitions
Yeah.
also, but let's start there. I think for us, for our audience especially, sin might be a religious word, but I think we all understand the concept that it is usually something that we most of us agree upon.
Yeah.
So we touch on topics that kind of border between people thinking it's wrong or right or not, right? Wrong or
Yes.
not. But sin, when we all agree with, it's usually the things that are bad, things that are wrong, you know, morally, ethically, stuff like that. I think there's a basis, right? So when we talk about sin, we're talking about just anything that is, for us as Christians, goes against the will of God.
Yeah, and I mean, you spoke about like just different, like from a religious standpoint, sin being like a religious word.
Term, yeah, it is.
But I think one of the things that we want to do in this episode is just speak the truth on this topic, like what
Right.
sin is. We're not trying to push religion down
Right.
anybody's throat or anything like that. And as always, please chime in the discussion. It's an open space. We love when you guys chat back to us and let us know your thoughts and views on the various topics that we have. This one I like.
Right.
Yeah, we love that.
For sure.
All right, so sin, like you mentioned, is wrongdoings. But let's talk a little bit about just the different degrees of sin.
Yep.
Are there different degrees or levels of sin?
So if you want, let's talk about what is accepted as different degrees of sin. So if you're asking me my personal opinion, when it comes to in the sight of God, I know we're talking, I don't want to go too much in the religious side, but just my belief is that like there's no big or small sin, but I do think different actions have different penalties.
Yeah.
So in that regard, you may consider something being
Like
more
different degrees or levels of.
correct, like consequences.
Yeah.
So wrong is wrong,
Yeah.
whether it was something small or something large, but something small may not cost you as much as doing something like more extreme or more bad. So I, for me, I don't think that it is any difference, but I do see where we take the consequences, and sometimes I think culturally and like in society we do deem certain ones that we okay with, and then
Yeah.
others that
I mean, but just like from a legal perspective, just the country that we live in, we have to abide by certain laws and stuff like that. And if we're talking like wrongdoings, there are certain crimes or offenses that a little bit more heavy. Like if you steal as opposed to murder,
correct, yeah,
the consequences look very,
very
different.
different. Yeah.
Do you think it's the same way we deal with some sins in church in terms of just the way we view what those different sins may look like, if we kind of class them in specific ways and kind of lay out consequences based on
what type
our
it,
perception?
So I think you have to in some degree, but I think what you may find though is because we know that different sins carry different weights of consequences, different penalties, different punishment. Because even in scripture, that is found in the Old Testament, how you treat someone who steals as opposed to someone who killed. So in your example, very different. I think because we recognize different consequences, different penalties, I think we sometimes unconsciously start to subscribe to a belief that, okay, some things are worse than others, but in the sight of God, and that's the part that I think has to be established, that all of it, you know, he's not pleased with. All of it goes against his love and against his will. So, yeah, I think we have done a bit of that where we sometimes maybe classify sins, some that we accept. And I don't think it's just based on the sin. I think sometimes it's just the culture of like different organizations or churches. So, I mean, we don't even have to keep it within the church. Like you look at financial organizations, they will bend the rules sometimes for profit, and it's close to being unethical, but it's still legal. That's a whole different aspect of it. But I see those things, and within the church, I think you see the same thing.
Yeah, I sadly.
How do you view it though? Like in terms of like those different levels.
I think sin is sin. I think sin is sin. There's no, like you mentioned, there's no small sin and no big sin. But I think one of the things I want to kind of chime in on here is the consequence part of it. There are some earthly consequences. So like the things like if we do wrongdoing here on earth while we're alive, like there are certain
100
some actions have consequences. All actions have consequences, whether good or bad, right?
And some of them are definitely worse.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. But beyond just the wrongdoing, like there's also the eternal consequence of sin.
Right.
So I think the church is very clear in terms of what that looks like.
Okay.
But I feel like a lot of the times, yes, we do kind of have some sins that are a little bit more acceptable. And I would have mentioned that on the previous podcast when we were talking about homosexuality.
Right.
And we kind of list out things like being drunk, sexual sin. Not that those things are viewed as, make merry, you know. I don't think the church has that view on it. I just think like there's some things like we are just a little bit okay with hearing and dealing with in like within the confines of the church.
Of the church.
So in terms of like the different levels, yes, I do feel like sometimes, I don't know if knowingly or just like subconsciously we do it, but it's definitely something that I've noticed.
You've noticed. I would introduce here Augustine, one of the early church writers. he says, any word, deed, or desire in opposition to the eternal law of God. That's how he defines it.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. And yet the church understands that, at least, I think this is where people get confused. The church says all sin is sin in the sight of God when it comes to eternity.
Yes.
And that's facts. So
That's absolute. There's no talking about that statement. Like,
Right,
we don't need
there's
to discuss or...
No, that's
It
just
is what
what it
it
is.
is.
God is holy. He's perfect. So any wrongdoing, no matter how big or small, it is still sin in his eyes. You don't get a pass for that.
Yeah.
The problem is we say that as a church, but then we adapt sometimes the way of the world. And I think it's not just simply around sin. And I'll probably introduce something that I don't know if we'll go into maybe later on, but I think part of the problem within the church is we compromise. So we'll it's not because we define sin as big or large, but sometimes we look at someone's ability, their position, their influence, their giving,
Yeah.
and we end up turning blind eyes. So I feel like maybe the bigger issue sometimes within the church is some people could get away with it.
Okay.
And then
so it's not like
others-
across the board.
I
It
don't
doesn't.
yeah.
It's not one size fits all. The rule is not the same for everyone type scenario.
And let me just be clear, that's absolute rubbish.
Yeah.
Like that's what causes the church to lose its testimony, to lose us being salt and light. And so, but that's where I think when you talk about like the different penalties, I do agree that like sins that you can't hide, it's almost like they forced to address it then.
Yeah.
And man, listen, if this is part of your story, I'm no way throwing any kind of shame or anything. But like when I say like a sin you can't hide, let's say someone who gets pregnant outside of marriage.
Yes.
There's no hiding that. Sometimes it's not even the church, sometimes they feel that weight and guilt and shame and they leave.
Yes.
But a lot of times it's because how they treat it as well. But then you're treating that person, yes, they've sinned, but then you're ignoring somebody else who beating their wife for some kind of foolishness,
Yeah.
but because they have a position or maybe they have influence, I feel like that's just my opinion
Yeah.
from what I've seen. I've seen a lot more of that as opposed to churches kind of separating around which is acceptable and which is not. I see it more sometimes so what people could get.
What do you think causes that in church settings? Just the
I was going to give you a going to get the real simple answer. What causes that? Sin. What do you think the MP? That not accurate?
Yeah.
No, just like dealing with it in that way. Like, okay, you would treat someone who got pregnant,
Right.
not married and stuff like that a specific way, but like you said, person beating on their wife probably serves or has a key position in a church setting of influence, probably gives a lot. How do you protect the church community and environment from situations like that? Because that's a reality, yeah?
Situation like treating one
Yes.
way and the other.
Yeah, the levels.
And you ought to make up your mind that you're dealing with all sin.
Yeah.
Like, if you're not building a culture, whether church or organization, family, whatever your unit is, like this goes beyond the church walls, but whatever you tolerate and so, man, those boundaries will always get pushed. And if it is you're talking about a situation like that, whatever the reasons are, then something is completely off. That we could look at sin and here's my thing. Should a child, like let's just look at this in the natural. So a young girl or a woman makes a mistake and she's living this life outside of the church, and yes, the fruit of her sin is laid bare for everyone to see.
Yes.
That's the bigger thing. For me, why would we make a child suffer for the sins of their parents? And so that there should still be a measure of grace. So for everyone, I think you have to confront the sin, no matter what it is, big or small. And we don't like to do that.
It's uncomfortable.
Of course. You just imagine somebody you have a good relationship with, and you seeing something in them that we use the word toxic. Like that's how we guys sin, right? So you seeing something that's toxic or just plain wrong in what they're doing. And it may not be something so drastic, but you know to yourself, we good with each other. Most times we're not doing the hard work of building that deep relationship. And the way you build deep relationship is in those conversations. But we don't like that because we know how it feels. You know to yourself, you confront, let's say you confront me with something. You know in the back of your mind, this could go good.
It could go completely off.
Could be completely off. It could change the relationship. We might stop talking.
Yep.
Start, and then what's happened sometimes when people trying to hide or mask their sin, they start to attack somebody else.
Put the spotlight elsewhere.
Also, and so I think there's a lot of complexity to this in terms of how we deal with sin. But I think let's start with a very basic commitment that we need to address all and any sin.
Yeah, 100%.
Like, let's just, if we could start with just that basic, stop trying to cover it up, stop trying to hide it. Get help if you need to, if it's in your life.
And sometimes you need help. Sometimes you need support.
Absolutely.
Like, and that's okay.
I think we whether it's shame, whether it's, sometimes I think the idea and the struggle with the disappointment that you'll cause to people, the hurt you'll cause to people, really traps us to not wanting to confront it.
You know what? Yes. I mean, I think everybody in this room could kind of identify with that whole disappointment. You don't want to disappoint anybody. What would they think?
Right.
Yada yada.
Yeah.
But honestly, I feel like, and this is something I just have to remind myself of, nobody is better than anybody. Like, you may look at
100.
somebody in a good season where they may not necessarily be going down a specific path in that moment, but that doesn't mean they were always there.
Yeah.
And so I think that's kind of like a sobering thought to me that, hey, yes, I understand you might be thinking about if they would be disappointed and all these different things, how they would view you and stuff like that. But even them, even the other people around you, they are going through things. They're going
through stuff, yeah.
Or went through things before.
Right.
And as Christians, we ought to be, I would hope that we are striving to be in a place where we give that grace. And it's something that I always say. The same grace that you'd want for yourself, give it to others.
So, I'm going to be devil's advocate with that.
Okay.
Same grace here, you want for yourself, you'll give to others, right? Here's why that don't work in our current church culture. Because we usually view others as far off worse sinners than we are.
100%.
We have an obscure view of ourselves when we look in our mirror.
Yeah.
And that, for me, I agree with you, and I'm not disagreeing with you.
No, but I hear what you're saying.
It doesn't work anymore.
Yeah. That's why I say I would hope that we can strive to be there, because that's what we ought to be, though. That's what we should be. I need grace. I do every single day I mean, in some seasons more than others.
MP, you agree with that statement?
Yeah.
Yeah.
MP, I think after this, cause this game, after that icebreaker, I find like MP like he cautious on what he say. All right, let me not put my boy under there, but yeah, I know you're saying you need the grace, and we all say that.
No, but
like, be real.
Yeah, but I think, like you say, like we think it's something that is in the past. We once needed the grace, so we good now.
Okay.
We good now. You are the one that needed, not me.
Because here's why. Because we stopped doing the big sins from the past.
Exactly. But we comfortable doing the little ones, though.
I know it works offer. It works when you know right and still do wrong. So we in a bad space in that regard. So I think, is sin really a big deal? It is, but I think even within the church, we've complicated this whole topic.
Yeah.
And we turn a blind eye to a lot of things for different reasons. We talk about the benefits and so, but I think that is a big part of it. Because we treat others with less grace, because we really believe that we are past.
Yeah, like the one saved, always saved
kind of mentality.
Scenario.
But for me, it is, how to put it, it's almost as if, because like I hear these conversations, like I'll forgive that person or I'll work with them if they do
and
A,
conditions.
B, C.
Yeah.
And I get that. I think one part, something I want to go back to, that I think we need to recognize and everyone has to understand. Even if you're showing grace to people, right? And I learned this recently. All sin has consequences.
Yeah.
So you may forgive, you may show grace, but maybe if you broke that trust, that relationship also, there are real consequences to things. And you said this at the beginning, that you may do something that is viewed as small, but one sin, it may not cost you so much.
Yeah.
And that's something I think we have to wrestle with as well. So yes, I think there's a difference in how we show grace, but I think also we have to be honest about it, that sin costs you.
Yeah, 100%.
Much more than you think. And the deeper and the more you keep it and fester it and practice it and so, it's going to take a toll on you.
And I mean I feel like we always get to this point of the conversation at every podcast. That's why it's so important to be in good communities and to have good support systems, so that if you're wrestling with things, you don't have to do it alone. And again, that's something that we always say here.
I'm going to put you on the spot.
You're going to put me on the spot.
And I'm going to hope MP, you might have to edit this in case you don't want me to ask this, right? But like I know like part of your story. And I know like finding community and building community is a struggle. So
Yeah.
So I hope you're okay with me saying that.
Yeah.
That's why I was kind of, no, because
No,
I mean,
I'm cool.
you're
Yeah,
cool with
it's
that,
good,
right?
yeah.
So what I wanted to say was, okay, like share from your own, because like that's something real for you.
Yeah.
Because even though we could say, yeah, that's why you need community.
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
So
that's not as easy as just me saying.
Correct. Like just share like just in a few moments, like what's some of the hard parts about getting into a community that you could actually share these kinds of things.
I think one of the things that I had to do, and this is just a part of my healing process, is understanding that the people or things that may have hurt me in my past, I can't put that on the people that are in my present.
Yeah.
And that is hard to do. Because, I mean, we're humans, like,
But if he's talking specific to like a church setting, I could only imagine how difficult that is, because the good from the past and the present kind of overlap.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
So you always going to be triggered, like if, okay, it's the same.
So, yes. So, like I said, but there's a second point I want to go to, though. And I hope I'm not rambling, because you put me on the spot. But be patient. Trust takes time to build. And it's not going to happen overnight.
Right.
But if God has placed you in a community, and I hope when you are looking for a space, you consult with the man, right? But yeah, once God has, and you know that he has placed you in a community, then he would give you the grace to build in that space.
In that space.
Yes, there may be still healing and stuff that you need to navigate and work through, but for me, one of the things that I have learned is, yes, I am sure I'm in this space, like God has sent me here.
Right.
I just need to be patient with the process.
Okay.
Like the trust would take time to build, and I'm fine with that.
Right.
Slow progress is still progress.
Right.
basically how well,
How
two of
you
the
appro-
main ways
Parts of how
that
you
I
approach
have.
it, yeah?
Yeah, and that whole trigger thing, that's a real thing. Yeah. And it's not just in church settings. I feel like
In
just
life, just in
generally.
life, right?
yeah, things may happen and you think you heal from something and it's because you're like, wait now, we're back here again?
Wow.
And you wouldn't believe that is one of the ways I feel like sometimes God tests me. Like, you know, sometimes you may feel like you've worked through a particular thing, but
Right.
then you bounce up a next situation and you're like, wait, boy.
It didn't
This-
finish.
This don't feel too good still.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a gauge to like, Renata,
To let you
need
know
to-
actually really where you are.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct.
I hear you.
Yeah. And you have to be honest with yourself. You have to be honest with yourself.
No, but see what I asked you, I think that's real good stuff there because it's wanting to talk about
Yeah.
being open or being ready to receive, you know, and we're not a strong correction, but like confrontation
Yeah.
of sin, because that's what we're dealing with, and we're talking about that, whether big or small. But you like you shared like you had to go through the process that might take time, but I think one of the things
I think it's good that things take process though, because I don't know if it's too healthy either to just go and vomit all your problems to everybody. Like, talk like. I think like there's a like. Well, take your time. That's all I said.
I would say for you, there's a wisdom in taking your time and allowing God to
Yeah.
reveal it bit by bit.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because
100%.
I think
So you want to make sure you're trusting the right people. Too,
oh no, and that should be earned.
Correct.
That should be earned. That trust is no privilege.
And could I say this? Even if you are sent to be in a specific community or whatever, you know, God planted you here or whatever, there are
Right.
going to be people in that community you should not be trusting.
Wheat and tears.
Yeah, right?
They grow
So,
together.
correct. So-
yeah. So when all they say, you know, the church are the worst people, that might be true to some degree. Well,
I did not
wheat
say
and
that.
tears. You know, I just
But I
finished a
would
statement
trust.
for.
I would trust in the pastor's wisdom. I will not be saying
Yeah,
anything further
even
on
though
that.
the pastor get everybody vexed today, according to all this story.
Wait.
You know what I mean? Like, Ole, we don't talk on this podcast, okay? But nah, I think that was just a good segue in a way for
Yeah.
getting people to understand that hey, sin is a big deal, but you really have to be in a space, a safe space,
Yeah.
and which the church should be. I want to say that, and I'm going to say that with the putting the weight and the responsibility on us and all of you guys here, that because as we are leaders in our spaces and in our community, that our responsibility is on us to create those safe spaces, to show that grace, show that mercy, and really love people through their hard times, through their darkness, and so.
That's
But-
that's the whole point of this. It literally is like the whole point of church.
Yeah.
It's for sinners. Like,
Faster, yeah.
I don't know, like, but I feel like over the years we have made it a place for the righteous,
The perfected.
and the perfect people.
The perfected,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
At least
yeah.
looking like it, right?
Correct. We look the part.
Because no, but in all fairness, though, Ren, church has to represent that part as well, and I'll tell you why. Because we all come in as sinners, and we know we are only saved by God's grace. But as we go on and move in that grace, we should start to see
Some changes.
changes. And I think what has happened is through church traditions and stuff, we seem to emphasize that change life to be a marker. Well, okay, everything is good. And it should be in some degree. So I do understand why churches would have kind of tilted that way. But I think the church is for the people who found God, but for those who still searching as well. I mean, I just read the scriptures and
Do you ever stop searching, no?
good point. Just in different ways.
Yes,
though.
yes.
In different ways. But yeah, very good point. But yeah. So yeah, the church should be that space. But the fact that we're having this conversation,
Yeah.
let's be honest, because we've seen enough to show that it's not been at times. Yeah, and I'm sure for our space as well, we probably don't always get right.
Nowhere will ever.
I know, but still, we still
We
have
still have to try and
we had to confront that,
yeah.
see where we didn't do well, and put
We
things
should
in
use this as
place.
an excuse to keep going along that way.
We have to change it,
Yeah.
you know, and learn and grow.
Yeah.
I think that's the thing about the church. Is we're the bride of Christ. And we are supposed to be being cleansed, removing all the spots, the blemishes through the washing of the word. And that's a process. That's sanctification.
Yeah.
So, you know, I think for all of us, no matter how good we have it, we consistently still growing, or we should be, and
Yeah.
still trying to work out the sin in our lives.
Yeah.
You had mentioned the quote-unquote big and small sin. So if somebody comes to you and asks, can the little sin, quote-unquote little sin, prevent you from entering the kingdom of heaven? So we make notice of, like you said, if someone gets pregnant before marriage,
Right.
or of those quote-unquote, as we say, big sins. But a gossiper in church who may go under the radar, can that little sin in their mind, because most gossipers, I think they know at some point in time what they are doing is wrong.
Right.
But because it isn't something that is more, self-contained, what's the importance of that? Could that actually prevent them when that day of judgment comes? Would he turn to that person and say, "Depart from me, I never knew you"? Or is it that,
Ren?
I think
I just
I think sin is sin, to be honest. And I think the Bible is very clear. It says that the wages of sin is death. Like, it didn't say, well, the small sin,
right.
to have a little crack open, you could sneak through. It didn't say that. So that's just my view on it. I think sin is sin in the sight of God. And like Pastor Jay mentioned, God is holy, and like,
He can't overlook sin.
yeah, he can't.
So I would say, if you ever ask me, like, was the big sin? My answer would be the unconfessed sin. So in that scenario, I'd say yes, they won't make it.
Right.
And just the fact that we have that in Scripture, Matthew 7, where it talks about people who will say, "Lord, Lord, did we not?"
Yeah.
That's exactly what we're talking about here. You could have the look, produce even some of the fruit, or that looks like a good Christian or someone who's been sanctified or in that process, and you have sin that is unconfessed or unexposed. It's one of the merciful things of God, that some people think it's so bad, but it's actually His mercy when He exposes the sin.
Yeah.
Like, that's His mercy and His grace on us. Because that's what you're talking about. You're saying somebody who gossips that they know, to some extent. I think for me, how I know who are true believers is the ones who grieve over their sin. They don't make systems.
comfortable.
Yeah, and they don't make systems around it, or try to defend it, or try to think. So, for me, yeah, in that case, whether you think it's small sin or not, I think any unconfessed sin or any sin that we do not bring before the cross, sin that we struggling with, but we don't want to get the help for. Man, yeah, I think people die. I'm not, like, when I was growing up, I used to be afraid. What if you die and you didn't correct something, right? But I think God's grace is that I think we can't control the moment we will die for most of us. And I think it's really a place, like I said, that you are there are things we'll still struggle with, we'll still mess up with. But I think if it is that we are found in that space of wrestling with it, struggling with it. So in that person who gossips, hopefully they will have times where they go to that person and say, "I apologize," and confess it or something like that. That would show that, okay, it may be a real struggle for them, Like, they love to hear the latest or whatever. And we have people like that, but hopefully that if they're showing that they're struggling or they're wrestling with it, then we know it's different. But yeah, I agree with Ren. Sin is sin, man.
Yeah.
And we have to get away from this type of Christianity where we accept things. Because actually gossip was mentioned in scripture. Paul mentioned it. So all sin is serious in the sight of God.
But again, like I feel like culturally we have set this precedence where again, small sin, big sin, different consequences. It looks different.
Because of the consequences,
Correct.
you see.
But in the kingdom, it's very clear.
Yeah.
There is one, like there is no.
So
We don't need to discuss it, like.
you know the hard part of this. As much as things are hard and difficult, right? Even though Trinidad is like where we are here, riddled with crime, like brutal crime, murders, all these things. But for the most of us, we do not feel like we're going to die soon.
Which is crazy. It's crazy, like.
No, but that's why we don't treat sin, because we think we have tomorrow. So we treat things like, okay, I'll get this sorted before. And it's only by God's grace, I think, we allow so many chances and so, but I think that's part of it. I think we
think we have time.
We have time, yeah. How many times you go to a friend or family's funeral and it shakes you? Yeah. It reminds you, it makes you confronted with the fact that, hey, I have very limited time on this space. Yeah. I need to do all that I have to do for God and God's way, not my way, not maneuvering and stuff. And I think that's why I think we struggle a lot. Like, why we would say small sin?
Yeah.
Why we would just brush it off like it's not a big deal. But remember what the prodigal son came back and said?
It may not be a big deal to us, citizen. Like, in terms of like how you may view the other person. Or,
right.
Or, you know, like, but to God it does.
It matters.
Yeah.
It matters. Like, all these things matter. So, like, when the prodigal son came back to his father in the gospel, he said, I've sinned against you and I've sinned against God. Like, that was something that God was always trying to show us. You know, through his word, through Jesus, sharing those parables. That, like, what we do here matters. It matters in the sight of God. Whether or not there's strict penalties or not. So we could change society and make murder justified then. Yeah. Think about it. Like we could if we could
accommodate sin.
We could accommodate
or the wrongdoings. That's for the wrongdoings.
Right. So I mean,
culturally,
there are sins that are accepted because it's legal.
And I mean, we're seeing it more and more every day.
I don't want to mention because I want to go too far off here, right? Because that's probably a topic we need to actually address.
Yes.
In the new year, right? But legally, we make certain sins accessible and encouraged even across some nations. And the truth is, in God's sight, it is huge. It is huge. And we forget that. That's what I'm saying. We forget that because whether we think we have more time or maybe we just have the wrong view of it. That anything, thought, action, word, any deeds that we do that is against the laws of God, man, that's a serious thing.
Yeah.
That's all I'll close off that part with. I think so. And do you have any other questions?
No.
Okay,
any inputs and nothing to say?
I just said something.
I find you quiet there, man.
Who make him quiet?
You have any stories?
What story you want to hear?
I don't know.
I have plenty stories.
Okay, right. We'll come back to you just now. Okay, so on to the next portion of the podcast. A hard one. I know you can't wait for this section. Yeah, you have some shots.
Both all you.
for both of us.
Both all you. Let go.
Yeah, some ways that the church may have mishandled addressing sin. And one of the things that I want to say here is we're not trying to point fingers at nobody or call out nobody or anything like that.
What is that?
I don't think like the church, I want to say this, I don't think the church gets it wrong 100% of the time. Let me just say that up front.
Okay.
I do think like there are ways that I've seen things done the right way. Yeah. So I just need to preface that before we head into this, segue into this, you know? Right. Public shaming. We hit it. Hot off the press.
Right.
So I was actually told this, well, it's not a story, this real life thing. Like this lady, and I think would have shared this on one of the podcasts before. She had a situation and she was brought before the church and stuff like that.
Just define, like just give us more clarity. Like, what do you mean brought before the church?
So she got pregnant and she was brought before the church.
Like in front of the church, in front
like Sunday morning, brought
it
up
was a
in front
public
of
setting.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I just want to be clear because
yeah.
okay.
Public setting.
Wow.
So it wasn't like just the pastors or
Right,
the leadership and stuff like that. And yeah, they handle the scene. That's as much as I was told that, and it was a very shameful thing that
She went through.
And since then she's never really been about the church life. What are your thoughts?
You know, when you line them up there, it's like I get like
Well, I
my
set
2 feet
the
chop off to start
tone.
with.
You know?
I think that was absolutely disgusting. Let me not say that right off the bat. But like was she called into a meeting separately or something first?
No.
This was the discipline.
This is what I was told. Yeah.
Yeah, well, and that's real rubbish. Though, like you say, especially how you say that part, she hasn't been back to church. Like I really, really hate those things.
So that's like a very extreme situation, but
But
there
no,
are also other situations.
I've heard
where
similar ones. That's why, like,
let's not even make it like anything, because that was like she got pregnant and stuff like that. So that's
Right.
kind of like big, right? Like a big deal. Like
'Cause
you
you can't
said, you
hide it.
can't hide it.
You can't hide it.
Correct. But have been in spaces where people were embarrassed, like from like called out
From the pulpit.
from the pulpit, which is I find like a form of like shame. Like I don't think it's like the right space to do things like that. I do, however, believe in correction. Let me just say that because people may be like, you know, Renata, you know, some things need to be addressed. I 100% agree with that.
right.
There are certain situations where you need to speak to people or counsel or correction, like I said. So I'm not speaking about that. I'm just saying like there's a forum or a way that should be done. You're excited for your points?
No.
Oh,
I was more waiting for when Ollie reach on the church jail now.
jail.
That's what I was waiting on. So you'll explain that after. I would say this. So I don't want to dismiss that part. Like, so I don't think the goal is shame, but I think
Okay.
the risk of shame is what helps people to stay in line as well.
Okay.
Let me be real careful how I say this. I am basing this on one of the places that Jesus tells us how to deal with sin or wrongdoing is in Matthew 18. And he gives us steps. So he says, first, go to the person who has wronged you. Try to work it out. Then he says, go, if that didn't work, that didn't help, go carry a couple elders, right? And then if that doesn't help, bring a bigger group and then basically go before the church, right? And the idea here is that you're taking those steps not because you're just exposing it, but because if the person is unrepentant.
Yeah.
So in the point of someone who got pregnant, that's a little bit difficult because they're already pregnant. You're going to ask them if they acknowledge and ask God for forgiveness for doing that outside of marriage. But then your job as a church is to love on that person and give them steps to be restored with their relationship with God.
Yeah.
Because that's the problem. It's not relationship with the church first. It's relationship with God. Because if we say in one breath here that sin is against God first, and that there's no big or small, sin is sin, then that's what we should be trying to help people be restored with. And I think, so my point is this: if in the one-on-one they're not accepting, if with 2 or 3 witnesses, if with the group of the elders and the church, and then publicly, the reason you reach that place is if that person is saying, no, I will not repent, I am going to do what I'm doing still, or something like that. And the point of doing that, and a lot of people miss this, is not for the shame to actually make them crumble. It is to you then reject them as part of the church. And this is the part that we don't like to talk about, because this is what the church should do. And the reason being is, if the church is healthy and I am cast out from it, the hope is that I would miss the love, the fellowship, the community, the time with God, with people who I know love me, that I'll be willing to confront what they are asking me to confront. But most times that is not so, especially if the church is not healthy, or if the sin is that enticing for someone to reach that place. So that's a long-winded way, but I think
the motive is different in a situation like that.
Of course.
Because if exposing them to that degree is done after several steps, I don't see shame as the motive in a situation
no,
like
because
that.
you're trying to restore you're trying to confront, you're trying to get the person to do the right thing.
Yeah.
So
which is where it's at. Which is where the intention should be.
Correct.
It's not about how the church looking. It's not about how...
Oh,
it's
man.
not about anything like that, really.
No perfect people in this space. So, we're not trying to protect an image.
Exactly.
We're all sinners saved by God's grace. So,
But like you mentioned earlier, we still do have a standard by which we live. So in as much as we're saying, that's not the intention. The intention is not protecting the image or anything like that. But we still have things that we need to be obedient, like to God's word and stuff like that. So those are the areas we're not compromising on that in any way.
Is what we said at the very beginning. We have to set a culture where we say, hey, we're going to confront sin.
Yeah.
And if you know
Do you think we have created that culture well?
No. I could say that even for our church. We haven't yet. We're trying. So I will talk to my leaders first and dream team, those who serve and try to continue to encourage them and create spaces. And you see, but like what you said too, there's so many things that could trigger people.
Yeah.
So it's like trying to navigate all that.
Yeah.
And unless people are willing to take the steps to be healed, that's a whole other conversation. It's hard, but the point is we have to try, and we have to be intentional to do it, to bring a space where, like we read in the New Testament, that's what the church did. Mm-hmm. They loved one another so much that when they saw them doing wrong, it's like, nah, I can't leave you there by yourself. I can't leave you doing that and pretend.
And that's the thing. We can't be blinded by it. We shouldn't be blind towards sin, because like you literally just said that it comes down to love. Like if you love someone, you will correct them.
You confront it.
Yeah.
And that's where the fear has to be conquered with love. So like when we talked about like you'll be afraid to bring up something with someone you're seeing something or you have a disagreement with. Man, is Jared, we love being in obedience to God more. We love being in the right standing with Him. That even if we have to risk this relationship, that literally, all right, like MP, if I say I love the MP so much, and yet I see him doing something wrong, because I stay in silence, because I'm more afraid that I want his favor, I want his relationship, I want his friendship, then is that really love? Because I'm watching him go down a road of destruction, maybe, where there's a small thing. Because again, in the sight of God, it's still sin. So for me, when it comes to the church's response to these things, I think you kind of extracted from all that I said. Man, it has to be, what's the motivation behind what we're doing? What is the intent? And I don't think shame is the tool that God is using. But the Bible does make some cases, even Paul, that that when we do things openly, transparently, that it creates a fear in the people to live right.
Yeah.
And I think it's not because of shame. I don't think it's because God is trying to shame people. But I think that is the weight of sin in God's eyes. That you should actually have a healthy fear of this being inside of you.
Yeah.
That you do not want it to be called out. You don't want this to be found in you. And I think that's just a real different approach that we need to communicate and stuff. But I'll give you that. Church probably has not been the best at dealing with sin. I like I said to you guys in other conversations, I think the bigger issue is not so much that the church is overly open about dealing with sin, but we actually compromise on it. That's why I think it's probably the bigger problem.
I think in terms of just the way that the church handles it, and I'll just kind of draw from an experience that I had. I know you was waiting for me to share this about church jail. So, like,
please define what is church jail
gosh, I
for
get
our
into
viewers.
that.
Okay, I just want to make sure.
So, we were talking about correction and stuff like that. And obviously, when you're young, you just do things, right? So, obviously, there were periods of times, several times, where I would have been corrected and you would be sent to church jail. Church jail is basically when you had to sit down a little bit now. Like, not serve.
Right.
Yeah, take a little break from this stuff.
From ministry.
You need to think about the wrong that you did.
So like a naughty corner?
Naughty corner, correct. Adult naughty corner. Or church naughty corner.
Church, right, so church jail.
See, help me unpack this.
All the healing in process here.
So yes, as I got older,
right,
I have learned to appreciate those periods of times more than I did in those moments. Actually, I didn't appreciate that at all because a lot of it I couldn't really understand. And I would tell you why. I was sent to church jail and I was just sent there. Like, there was...
So just removed from everything?
Just remove, just sit and...
Nobody
exist.
really... Right. So
you just existed.
You're just in the church.
Correct. There was no accountability there. And as I got older, I have kind of understood where the gap in those moments were for me. Okay. And for me, it was the lack of accountability in those seasons. Because I would like to think, and we were speaking a bit about the intention of being corrected.
Right.
And I think if your intention is to correct something, and you spoke about reconciliation, giving the person a chance to kind of work their way back to a specific space, there needs to be accountability. You need to be walking with those people in those moments. Okay. Yeah. You can't just leave people on their own. Because I was young, like, I didn't know what to do. I was just on a break, vacation. I don't have to reach the church early. I didn't really enjoy it. I have to say I didn't enjoy it.
Because you were just like outcast then.
Correct. So yeah, that's one of the areas I felt like could have been done. Not going to discount or question the correction part of it, although some of it could have been. But there are moments where you need correction to grow and just to, let's not get into that. But the whole accountability thing is really big. It's really big for me, and it's something that I try to do. If I have to go to someone to say, hey, you probably need to probably check this area or whatever,
right.
I would try my very best to, hold them accountable. Check in, because you need to figure, how do you even gauge the person's spiritual health if you're not connected to them?
Right.
I don't serve my time. Deuces, we out.
So sometimes it could be a case you just get exposed. There's no accountability. There's no steps to actually take to correct the issue. You just learn to hide it better.
Yeah.
Like you could be in that space where Like if it's something that you just know they're looking for or something. Yeah, I mean, I get that. I mean, I think for us, we have to take an approach where church discipline should be with the heart and the goal of reconciliation.
Yeah. But how are you to gauge if someone has
Or do you have to walk with people?
That's my
This is a
point.
messy process. This is not this is no quick fix, especially for things that are deep rooted, like struggles. Let's say addictions.
Yeah.
That you discover someone has an addiction with something, and
Some things may even be linked to trauma, like
of course.
trauma
So
response.
there's no quick fix for things that are deep seated. And all I'm saying is that it depends on what the motives are. Like you kept bringing back up. I think for me, it's just really, man, do we have the heart to actually go on? Because here's the part of this. So let's say we find you in doing something wrong as a youth. It's going to take time and resources for people to walk with you. And I'm not sure we loving each other enough to get into to those trenches. I think,
it's like you mentioned, it's a messy
of course,
place.
you go,
Sometimes it's like a whole back and forth. I mean, I'm saying this like reflecting on the periods of times when I was in church jail, but I've also experienced it on the other end, like actually having to walk through certain things with people, seasons and stuff
Right,
like that.
okay.
And sometimes I'd be questioning myself, like, yo, Renata, what is going on? Like, I just don't know. It's difficult, like you said. It's
no, 100.
messy.
It
It doesn't feel comfortable.
The hard part too is if you're not careful to guard your own heart, like in that case where you walking someone through, the next person that comes in with their issues or whatever, you may be quick to just lock them off,
Wow, yeah.
And I think that's what's happening in the church. There's not just simply that the church or people in the church don't love or just never loved or anything.
Yeah.
They could have put themselves out there to help our brother, to help our sister, and guess what happened? They got burnt. They invested all this time, and that person was still probably deceiving them. I mean, it could just be a struggle. Let not even be cynical about it.
Yeah.
Our brokenness has affected us in so many ways that we don't even understand sometimes. And we hurting people that we don't even seeing it, we don't even understand. So the point is we got to be willing to go into the trenches. That's the best term I use. That you gotta be willing to go into the trenches with people where they fighting their battles, where they struggling, where dirty, where messy, where dark. And then if you need help, then you get others.
Yeah.
You start taking steps on it, but you got to go in there with it. And that for me is where I hope we do a better job. I hope we raise up people in our communities and that will go out there that when they see somebody in their mess, that they, like we remember Christ dealing with the woman caught in adultery. He who has sinned cast the first stone. That we always remember, Jared, that like we have no authority to throw stones.
Yeah.
Like
Nobody.
None
literally.
None of us. And so getting into that space, church jail. I hope you didn't I know, like, since we started this podcast, I always hear this story about somebody making out with the drummer. I just gonna leave that right there. And so some people face jail time for maybe some things like that.
Yeah, but then you had to look at the fact that most of the pastors' kids just get away with real stuff too now.
Hey, let me move from here, boy.
Wait, I think I had like you when you was quiet there, boy. Come, expound on it. Let me hear your church stories then.
So I can't really remember being in church jail. I remember visiting others in church jail. You go check them every once a week and stuff. But yeah.
My word.
But coming back to the point about the pastor's kid, I mean, I've seen that in the sense of just not necessarily, yes, pastor's kid is a good example, but just in the sense that other certain people don't have that level of correction given to them. whether it be because of who their parents are in the church or whatever it be. And yeah, that's something I think that is definitely, you would see other persons that may not have that level of authority or whatever in the church, and they are either shamed or corrected 10 times more, but then the other person just gets away with it. So yeah, I mean, we have a pastor's kid among us. I'm not sure if
Don't point fingers.
yeah, don't point any fingers. For some reason, I don't feel he get away with anything. You was ever in Churchill?
Yeah, boy.
Yeah.
I guess I'm Churchill.
Okay.
But
You know what? I am really grateful for Churchill, though. I really am.
because you still had a visitor.
Oh, God. How you not a visitor?
I mean, the Holy Spirit.
Oh,
Go ahead.
no,
Nat.
I think it helped me be able to, and I'm not saying that I get it right all the time, don't, but there were situations that came up after experiencing just like the hurt from that,
Right.
that really helped me deal with situations when I was on the other side of it. So because I understood
How it felt.
in detail, yeah, like how it felt and just the gaps, the things that I saw that should have been done probably a little bit differently.
You
It
did it.
helped me, yes.
You
do
became
things, what I wanted.
Right.
What I needed
What
in
you
those
needed at
seasons.
that time. Yeah,
Correct.
that's
So in that sense, I'm grateful for the experience because I don't know, who knows, maybe I would have been
maybe you might have
church
taken it for
jailing
granted.
people and leaving them.
I think for what the MP raised,
Yeah, let's hear your church jail stories. You had visitors?
I think as a PK you always have visitors. But like sometimes it's be more this works both ways, but I really have to say I think my father really protected me and my brothers from a lot of the strain of being pastors' kids. It was only when we got older we realized how. So this was one of the darkest parts of church life that I actually walked away from church for. I saw when people use like us, our flaws, our mistakes as ways to attack him.
Wow, okay.
And that was one of the hardest things to live with. Because I saw my father, he was my hero, no doubt. Like I saw this man endure, I saw him love people and get dealt the wrong way and still had a heart of compassion. Like, and we used to get, I'm telling you, me and my older brother,
Because that just don't make sense.
of course, 'cause we don't understand God's grace,
Exactly.
love. Like we just like, and we
Yeah.
debating with him. Like, why are you this way? We actually saw him as, in those days, right? Like as teenagers, we saw him as soft. You know, we were afraid of him because when he get upset with us, but we saw him as soft. Like, why don't you stand up? Why don't you defend yourself? Why don't you do this and that? And I hated the church because I saw, you know, like MPU talk about like pastors' kids get like a blight with stuff. And I did see that too. We did have certain benefits, but it wasn't so much that he demanded that. Like sometimes I would see people give us benefits because
Okay.
so you wanna hear this church messed up. Not only were we used to attack him emotionally and that kind of thing. Because me and my brother would get in trouble. And
As normal teenagers.
right,
You're not aliens.
young guys navigating school, all these things. But I also saw people use us. So they would come like they're loving with us, and so I remember the very first time I sat in my house and was exposed to pornography was from a man who my parents trusted. They had gone on a conference locally or something, and he came to stay with us like he always did, like real good with us and stuff, and he brought that. And he and my older brother, and yeah, I saw it there because and I saw that people used us, like if they were good with us. Me as a parent, I understand that now.
Yeah.
When I look at my daughter, when I see how people treat her, obviously I'm
Yeah,
more open
The
to
trigger, right?
correct, right? Like so I'm
Because
like
you're on the other side of it now, and
so like I like you know, but I'm more scared that I want to make sure my daughter has good people around her.
yeah.
People who will love her and you know this only well, she likes to talk. Like, you know, people who wouldn't just like just bypass her or you know, like because she's not gonna learn everything from us. So yeah, so I started to understand the other side of it. So
Wow.
yes, there's that part about I think we did get away with some stuff. No doubt. No doubt. Like
But I guess it's not in the way that most people think. Of
no,
it.
what I'll tell you 100% people have no idea
Yeah.
what it means to be a pastor's kid.
Yeah.
They know it from the church settings.
Yeah.
But like when I saw
But that's the thing. Like for most people, church is just a Sunday.
for us it's not.
Right.
It's not.
And it's not something that you choose. As kids then.
No, no. And I think that's where my dad did a really good job of shielding us, protecting us
Yeah.
from a lot of things. But like I said, when we got bigger, we started to see it. So I really did not like the church. I just talk in church on the whole.
Yeah.
But yes, I think it's a hard thing. I don't want to make excuses, but like we got away with some stuff, but I think it wasn't so much that was demanded that we get away with it. But I think just being the pastor's kid, so like certain leaders and so will give you more grace then.
Okay.
I'm not saying it's right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's right, but what I think is that we should be giving that grace to everyone, no matter what.
But I mean, Josh is kind of zoning in on the pastor's kid thing, but we kind of started talking about just people in different positions.
Correct.
just
I think that's what
generally.
it is. It's
Yeah.
it just feeds into that part of the problem. So you know, because we are a pastor's kid, that you are exposed to different things. But what you don't see is the different aspects of it that actually makes most pastors' kids don't want to be in the church.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, thanks for that, MP. But it is a valid point with it.
But I mean, one of the things that we ought to be doing is foster environments that, you know, allow for us to heal as people and to be able to talk and confront those sins in a way that we're not judged or cast out
Right.
in that way. Because again, the goal is always getting them back to
Restoration.
Yeah.
It's restoration. That's the gospel.
Yeah.
The whole gospel is restoring man into relationship with God. Why have we changed our mission?
Yeah.
Like,
And I think as well, when people are dealing with sin, and I think the takeaway point that we push in here is the relationship aspect of having that healthy relationship with people where you could deal with sin in the right way, confess your sin to
Right.
someone that could actually guide you through it. And I think a lot of people have more faith in the leader, or whoever it is, that person that they should confide in.
right.
They have more fear in confessing it to them, in the sense of not having the actual fear of it being with God. In the
Yeah.
sense of like, you should be more afraid that
Hey, you just touched on something that real,
yeah.
honestly deep.
Because I remember a time I was going through some heavy stuff, and while I was living in the sin, I wasn't afraid to I was in it. I was enjoying it, and
Right.
when it came to light and things started to crumble, and at that point in time, the pastor that actually what was my pastor, and he found out.
Yeah.
I couldn't even speak to him. He actually came to my house when certain things happened, and I literally was just on the ground in tears. And when he came, I was so afraid of him as a person.
Right.
No, I'm not saying that that's wrong. I mean, that's just emotions. That's the person you're with. But I'm just thinking about, like, that's how your faith should be to God.
Yeah.
And even though it's not unhealthy that it is to man, because he came and he helped.
I gonna hit that. That's because he was right there with you.
Mm-hmm.
You ain't cross over to be face to face with God yet.
Mm-hmm.
We still have time.
Yeah.
We still can make it right.
Yeah.
That's why I think it's so good to have that healthy respect and honor.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good response, because you know what? Your pastor at that point is the under shepherd to the great shepherd.
Mm-hmm.
So what you felt there is, just imagine that.
It's like a mirror of
that.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what the church supposed to be.
Yeah.
Like, and we think that's negative. Oh, like no, that's what the shepherds should be. That's what the elders and the deacons. That's what they should be, like that reminder of God in your life. Because that's what I'm saying. Like, we do not think of sin in that way, and you being confronted there. Just imagine on Judgment Day, my God, when He says your life going to be an open book to Him. Yeah, we in trouble. Like, that's sinking. But for the grace of Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Once we have breath in our lungs, that grace is still available.
It's still available.
Grace runs out.
Yeah, because judgment coming.
We don't have eternity on the earth.
That's the thing.
And like you mentioned before, like, we don't know when.